different decades of his life and the different things he's done. We got the hang gliding community, we got the CrossFit community, we got the Valencia crowd, we got even my co-workers he got to know through my work. It's just, thank you all so much for caring, for coming. I love this man more than life itself, and I know he would be so humbled actually to see you all here, because he never thought he mattered that much in our whole money. You matter to so many people. Look how many lives you've touched, right? And so thank you for this, also for me to see this. And why I picked this particular date is most of you may know the story by now. So we originally met at Valencia College. He was a prerequisite for nursing, and he fit into my schedule. And so I started my semester in 2009, fall semester that is, and my brain just went to glue. I looked at this man and I'm like, what's wrong with me? What's going on? And I really wasn't going for a relationship or anything. I just wanted to get my degree, right? So I had to record our sessions, ethics and critical thinking, and because I couldn't remember anything after class, I was just, wow, madly in love. And it turned out that A, I deserved my A because I studied so hard, because in front of him I didn't want to look like an idiot. And then B, the feeling I guess was quite mutual, and after I graduated from his semester, we started going out. And that was about January 2010. And the end of March, he was asking me, hey, would you move into my place just for a few days for the weekend, because I am taking a free diving course in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm like, sure. I was renting a room at a friend's place at this time. So I moved into his little apartment, bachelor's apartment, to watch the Ponce, which was his dog, which became our beloved son. And so I moved in there and I realized his kitchen, brand new, was never used. It was still covered in the original foil it came with, because it was a new apartment complex, but I like to cook. So I took advantage and I cooked whatever I wanted. The dog was very happy too. And then he came home, it was April 1st. And I would never forget, he opened the door and he walked in, and I was making fish in foil with veggies and whatnot. And he looked at me and the first thing he said is, you cooked? And I'm like, well, you had a kitchen. And that was our first kind of home cooked meal. The next day I went to college for my class, came back. The same afternoon he was at home. And so I started packing my stuff because he was back, right? And he looked at me like, what you doing? And I'm like, well, you're back from your, free diving course, and so I'm packing my stuff, going back to Eddie's, and he says, please don't. And I'm like, okay. And that was 15 years ago. So we've been through so much. And I try, and I don't want him to be defined by a disease, because let me tell you something about Ralf. He was kicking the gut, he would be tumbling down, and he would get back up, and he dusts off his pants, and he says, okay, what else can I do? And it was just, first his hips go out. He was an avid runner. I don't know if you picked up on this on the picture. Since he was a young man, running was that was his drug. He loved to run. His hips went out. He had to have bilateral hip resurfacing surgery. So he went into bike packing. So he always found a way to make life happen and live it to the fullest, to the best of his ability. And I think that is something I admired about him. Tried to support him, and we did a lot together. I actually seen pieces of Florida I would have never seen in my entire life if it wasn't for him. Bikepacking, the Huracan is a 400-mile around Florida bikepacking event where off the beaten path. They tried to avoid asphalt at all costs. There was some weed whacking involved and crossing rivers, carrying your bikes and whatnot. There were areas there was no signal. And he enjoyed this so much. And even after he had the surgery, he couldn't camp anymore, we did this spousal supported version of it, meaning I would follow in a hotel room. I would drop him off in the morning, so he would go for 100 miles bikepacking through the woods. And then I had to find him by the end of the day. And there were some occasions in the Big Bend where my GPS suddenly said, I have no more signal, you're on your own. But I always found him. And dropped him off in the morning, and he would go again. And I remember this one time, I was waiting in the hotel. It was nasty, it was cold, it was cloudy, rainy, and I'm like, oh, this poor man has been out there all day on his bike, you know, and then through Claremont, you know, the horrible hills. He came to the hotel room, he was speaking, but he's like, this was awesome. I'm like, okay. So that was him. So I don't know if you have stories about him like I do. I have so many. I could stand here all day, I guess. And as I'm standing here, I am half a person because he made me whole. But let me tell you something. If I knew what was going to happen and I would have a choice going back, I would pick him all over again because he gave me something in life that I don't think I will find ever again. And that's precious, and I will treasure that until the day I die. So thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Alice. Do we have another memory or warm thoughts that you would love to share?
I don't want to go on too much, but it's really nice to see so many people out here. And Ralph was a big part of the ranch for 8 or 10 years or so, a long time ago, and he built our website and did a lot of the legwork making that happen. And anytime there was a marketing type thing, he would put it together. People from other parts of the world, he would translate information from them and back to them. And we loved Ralph. He was very German. Everything had to be just so it was hard on him out here because I'm pretty sloppy. I don't know. So there's most of my memories of Ralph just have to do with the help managing the place. I know he met a hang glider pilot out here that was a professor at Valencia, and I think that was a connection that we originally went with and got working with that. And, I always reminded him of how lucky he was, and that I probably liked her more than him. But I'm happy for the time they had, and I'm sad that it wasn't forever. And I'm glad to be able to contribute something to his legacy, and the virus, and want you to be happy.
And Ralph just happened to be Sybil's boyfriend at the time. So I got to know Ralph very well. Sybil moved back to South Africa, and Ralph stayed in Pittsburgh, and I adopted both of my daughters as a single mother. And Ralph was instrumental in helping me raise them. He was a strong, incredible man in their lives. They didn't have a father, but he did so much for them, with them. He changed our lives in so many positive ways. And when my daughters were little, I mean, he was wonderful. Everybody knows this. He was wonderful with children. Children and animals. But one time, I remember he was teaching. I was still working. He was doing translations remotely. So he was living with us at the time. And so he started to teach my older daughter, Mara, how to ride a bike. First with the training wheels, and then he took the training wheels off and was teaching her. And he left to go to New York for a while, and so it was up to me to finish teaching Mara how to ride a bike. And I said to Ralph, we were talking, and I said, oh, she's scared. She wants her training wheels back on. And he said, no. He said, don't do that. He said, she is so close. And that was the father figure in Ralph, that he knew she could do it. And sure enough, she was so close and she did it. But, you know, he said, don't cry because it's over. Be happy because it happened. And so I think we're all so thankful for having had Ralph in our lives.
First time I met Ralph, in terms of being able to see him for an extended time, was when the dean at Osceola wanted some folks from the West to share insights into hiring, because Ralph was going back and forth between Osceola and West, you know, and there was a position, a full-time position. So our dean on the West Campus in the Humanities said, I'd like you to come over with me so we can look some of these candidates over. So when Ralph's turn came up, we were just so blown away by his beautiful illustrations and the way he organized his course content. Both of us went like this. My dean at the time and yours truly, and we looked at the dean on Osceola, and it's as if we know who's supposed to get this job. Ralph. So Ralph became the full tenured professor. That's the first time, the first major incident.
We had given that week, and Ralph would go and get a tea, of course, a hot tea, and he would bring me back a coffee because I would bring cookies. And they were just those slice and bake, there weren't anything to get excited about. But everyone got excited about the cookies, and then so Ralph started buying me this coffee, and it was god awful. It was the worst coffee I've ever had in my life. But I drank it, and thank God he only bought me a small each time. But the fact that he would always bring it with such a thoughtful gesture, it was very typical of him, which I learned later.
Say something a little different here, because I told her Iris was our best student of all the people we had. So I thank, not only for Ralph, but I thank you, because you're a marvelous person, right? And I know your support helped him through everything, so that's nice. And Ralph was, yeah, he was German. And my teaching was slightly different than Ralph's. Ralph was very precise, and everything had to be logical. And I kind of teach mythology, and I was kind of like, no, we don't really have to know everything exactly. Maybe intuitive thinking is nice. And then he would say something like, no, it's not logical. And you know, we'd go back and forth about that. But yeah, we had meetings every Thursday, like Lisa said, and it was a real pleasure having him in the meetings. It was a real pleasure having him teach philosophy in IDH. I'll be honest with you, I never knew what was going on with you two. Because being my student, right?
Oh, I did.
You did? I did. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for being you, Iris. And my love and happiness, and thank God we had Ralph. Thank you.
Andrew mentioned how he was a part in hiring Ralph. Well, Ralph was a big part in hiring me at Valencia. as a matter of fact, I think my CV would never even get looked at if not for Ralph's understanding of a fellow European's convoluted CV with different courses, a little bit from Poland, a little bit from Sweden. I think Ralph was the only person who could really get that kind of educational path. And in my first years at Valencia, he was conducting my faculty observations. And it wasn't pretty. My classes were a mess. But Ralph was the best person to give feedback. He was always so gentle and precise, and it felt like I was learning a lot just by observing him and interacting with him. And maybe it's the fact that I'm Polish, but I was always a little intimidated by him. I've always looked up to him.
To hear the mention of anyone who loves philosophy and dedicated their life to the work, I completely applaud anyone who would do something so beautiful. And I can tell that you love Ralph so much. So give yourselves a hand for loving.
your attention just one more time. I have a special introduction here. I know that Rachel talked about the two daughters that Ralf helped raise at the beginning, the adoptive daughters, and one is Mara. Mara is here today. And I don't really know the reason why, but Ralf told me multiple times that if he would pass, he would just love for Mara to play a song called Mirror in Mirror on her violin. So Mara said, I'm here. So she's going to do this right now, and that means the world to me. Thank you, Mara. I love you.